Hari Om. How can we experience limitless consciousness, silence, and unbroken bliss? Atma samstiti swatma darshanam, Atma nirdvayat, Atma nishtata. Steady abidance in the state of Atma, Supreme Self, is truly having the vision of one's own Atma or the Supreme Being. For it is non-dual and a state of being uninterruptedly established in the abundance of the Nirguna Brahman or Atma or the Supreme Being. Kim Swarupamit Yatma Darshane Avyaya Bhava Purna Chit Sukham. Having known one's true eternal nature, one abides as the being with no beginning and no end, in the state of unbroken consciousness and supreme bliss. So in these two verses from Upadesa Saram, Bhagavan very nicely explained the easiest way to attain infinite consciousness and bliss. All of us wants to be happy always with no misery, and all of us have highest liking for ourselves. The reason being, we derive highest happiness only from our own true inner nature. And we experience a state of great peace when we are in deep sleep. And to experience such a state of deep peace which we are experiencing in the state of deep sleep, one has to know oneself. We need to understand our true nature, who exactly we are. Or we need to go beyond whatever the limitations we have kind of put on our own, like the limitations of the body and the mind. These two are the limitations we have put on our own. This is part of Jiva Srishti, not Ishvara Srishti. The Supreme Being or God or Ishvara has not put this limitation on us. We ourselves have kind of formed these limitations on our own, and then we suffer because of that. So here, let us just understand by going a bit deeper into this way of how exactly we experience happiness. All of us, whether a person is rich or poor, have the same level of happiness when they go to deep sleep. Whether a person is extremely poor or someone who is extremely rich, we can always say that there is no difference in the levels of happiness one enjoys while in the state of deep sleep. Whether a person is sleeping on the street or someone who is sleeping in a great mansion, a great rich person with all the comforts. The level of happiness is not different from whatever happiness a person on the street who is sleeping on the roadside in the state of deep sleep enjoys. So it is not that as if one has more wealth, there will be more happiness. No, it is not the case. If one can have more happiness by having much more assets and wealth, then the person with the highest assets and maximum wealth would be having the highest happiness. But But is this what we are seeing in this world? No, it is not the case. So it is not that the wealth or our assets are in direct effect to increase one's happiness. No. The same way, we can see how people, when they amass great wealth, assets, etc., it may give them happiness for some few days or time, some kind of whatever short period of time. But after some time, they get kind of bored with those things and they hanker after acquiring further new assets. So this means that our mind is getting only very short term pleasures from these acquisitions of the wealth or assets in the world, and after that it again gets bored and start looking out for further ways to get pleasures. In the same way, whatever be the level in which one may be living his or her life in this world, whether it is a kind of rich life or a normal life, one is never happier. One always seeks to attain something which one feels one doesn't have right now. So there is always a constant movement towards acquiring something which a person assumes will give him more happiness, will make him more happier. But the moment a person acquires such assets and wealth, in due course of time, they understand it doesn't give them lasting happiness. Why? This is the very nature of our ego, mind or the I thought. Dissatisfaction, not being satisfied with what we already have, is the very nature of our ego mind. So this way, even if we have all the happiness in this world, yet we will not feel a lasting happiness, because it cannot really satisfy our true nature, which is infinite. Our true nature being infinite, anything which is less than being infinite will not give us happiness, because unknowingly we are actually seeking our own true nature through the worldly joys and pleasures, so which can never really fulfill what we are really looking for: the unlimited happiness, unbroken happiness, infinite state of being. All these are part of our own inner nature, but when we look out for these things in the external world, we will always fail and we will always feel lacking, even though we may be having all the things in the world. So this is the reason why we are not able to experience the state of infinite consciousness and unbroken bliss with whatever the joy or the pleasures we may derive from the worldly objects, however one may be rich, etc. Now, our true nature is Atma, which is called as the Sachitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. If this being our true nature, why we are not feeling that? It is because of the limitations, upadhis, we have put on our own. How? Dehatma buddhi. The very effect of, or the very nature of ego is to identify with the body and mind. So, we being the ego, we have identified ourselves with the body and mind. So, we feel limited to the body and mind. Now, you take this case. Sat means existence. Our true nature is that of infinite existence. Now, because of this limitation of the body mind, our existence is felt limited to the level of this physical body. If a person is height is 5 feet or 6 feet, and whatever width, only to this limit we can experience our existence. Beyond body we cannot really experience our existence. Now you take the case of consciousness, chit. Our consciousness is limited to our mind and body. So beyond the body and mind we cannot feel conscious of anything. So that way our true nature being infinite consciousness, infinite awareness, but we limit it because of the limitations of body and mind. Because we associate ourselves with the body and mind, so our awareness is also limited to the body and mind. The same with happiness, bliss, ananda. Our true nature is that of infinite happiness, but because of this limitation of body and mind, our happiness is limited to what we can experience through our body and mind, the worldly pleasures. And the worldly pleasures are but a infinite fraction of what our true happiness, what the kind of infinite happiness we can derive when we remain as the existence consciousness bliss, Atma, the state of Sahajasthiti, the state of pure awareness, being one with the self, remaining as I am, aham, just beingness. So these are the reasons why we feel limited. Now, what is the way to go? The way to go is to turn our attention within towards the pure awareness or the presence of Bhagavan all the time. The more our attention is towards the worldly objects, the more we as the ego or the I thought gain strength, and then we never feel happier or peace. So the more our attention is turned within, the ego or the I thought gets weakened, thereby in due course of time, as we keep our focus on the presence of Bhagavan within the self-awareness, the ego naturally subsides into that pure awareness. Thereby all the thoughts, vasanas, they are extinguished, eradicated. Thereby one will start slowly experiencing the glimpse of infinite consciousness, silence and unlimited bliss. So the way to go is to always keep our focus centered on the presence of Bhagavan within, the inner pure awareness. Aham, the feeling of I am, which is there always, here and now. It is not something to be experienced at a later time. At this very moment, if we can be still, if we can keep our mind quiet, no expectation, the mind stops. Then, only then, at this very moment, we experience, or rather our attention is drawn to the inner awareness by itself. So just by being still, summa irithal, we become aware of our own existence, which is basically being in the presence of Bhagavan. So just by being still, when I say being still, it means remaining without thoughts and yet aware of the presence. So by default, we are always in the presence of Bhagavan. Only thing is, we should not disturb that and let our mind wander towards worldly objects. So the secret to infinite consciousness and unbroken bliss is to remain always in the presence of Bhagavan, never to leave the presence, anywhere, anytime, in any situations. Being in the presence of Bhagavan is the highest good for oneself and for the entire world. This is the eternal truth. So we should never leave that presence, whatever may be the situation. And if we do that, with this firm practice of being in the presence of Bhagavan, the self-consciousness, the I am, aham, all the time, then naturally the ego will subside into that pure awareness. The presence of Bhagavan will get dissolved. Thereby we remain just as I am, the pure being, the pure I, Shuddhanam, infinite consciousness. So this is the final truth, which is basically the fact that we are already in the presence of Bhagavan, the feeling of I am, which we kind of feel whenever we wake up from deep sleep. It gives us a glimpse of it, how our mind has been experiencing that peace being merged in the Atma. So the way to go is we should keep our mind or the ego or the I thought merged in the Atma or the pure awareness all the time. How? Only by turning within, Antarmukam, keeping our focus, attention on the inner awareness all the time, the presence of Bhagavan all the time. By doing so, ego naturally subsides into the pure awareness, presence of Bhagavan. Thereby, we will slowly start experiencing infinite consciousness, deep silence, and uninterrupted bliss, which is our very own true nature of being in the presence of Bhagavan. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva.